As soon as the second trial starts, the arena becomes a place of bloodshed. While most candidates freeze in terror, our MC, Unsil, stays cool against the wall like he's watching a dead body, only for the real shock to hit when the strongest fighter Nung Wugong expects to slice him apart. Yet Unsil dances through the deadly slashes by learning the killer's moves from the corpses Wugong left behind. Unsil taunts Wugong to strike, then ducks the blow to drive his short sword into the weak spot at the neck his grandfather taught him. When his grandfather, but Unsil, who was an undertaker, found him abandoned in a snowy field and gave him that very name, he also taught him how to become one too. One night, Unsil thought he and his grandfather were going to play, not realizing it was their last moment together since he had just found him without eyes and with both arms cut off. His grandfather once met a strange man who called him the demonic blade Bu Yang, saying he betrayed his family by walking away and that his only true home now is hell. As he listens to his grandfather, he hears the dying man's final wish: live happily and never seek revenge. Well, that wasn't the way the tale was meant to unfold. This time, Unsil can't make his grandfather's wish come true. As he looked down at his grandfather's body, it was clear that both arms had been cut off at the same time. They use a rare move called a downward slice. On top of that, the move shifts halfway through to strike right at the eyes. Unsil realizes the technique must come from the demonic path, specifically the Tianzu yoga move that creates such deep wounds. Watching his grandfather's back, I see 93 marked from hidden weapons swirling like falling flowers, proving he must have a special device that fires hundreds at once. Plus, the bottom of the tongue and the fingernails have turned a strange color. That only happens when you're hit with a deadly poison that turns your flesh to rot and your blood to filth. Putting it all together, he knows there can't be that many people like that, so he is determined to find the right one no matter what. Unsil wastes no time seeking revenge and quickly signs a paper to set his plan in motion. As one instructor rushes him to sign the papers, Unsil shocks everyone by tearing open his thumb to stamp them with his own blood, a brutal act born from his deep desire for revenge after his grandfather's death. This is exactly why he's joining the competition, seeing it as his first move to get revenge in a world ruled by the orthodox and unorthodox sects, where the orthodox, backed by the Murim Alliance, claim to stand for justice. On the other hand, the unorthodox sects gather around the Demon Palace, where they worship raw power instead of justice. And even though these opposing groups have long kept each other in check, the Orthodox sect have decided to take the lead and move forward. This was how the 18 martial masters came to be, chosen to serve the greater good. Fearing the growing threat, the Demon Palace chose to step up its own power in response. So, they hatch a wild plan to forge 10 demon masters by finding 10 gifted youths and training them in the forbidden arts of the demonic sects. They didn't care where they came from when they joined the contest. So many young men rushed to the Demon Palace, including our guy Unsil, who stood among them feeling their dark energy and realizing one of them was likely linked to the man who killed his grandfather. Since his opponent is so powerful, Unsil knows he must train to become a master at fighting just to stand a chance. This is why he is driven to become one of the 10 demon masters, seeking the power needed to stand against his enemy. Suddenly, a huge, frightening man steps forward to speak with the possible demon masters and says he is head instructor Hyuk Ryan-Yong. The guys are totally shocked when Hyuk reveals who he is and shows how popular his work has made him. Hyuk tells them they've come to find the best talent from all the demon sects, and only those who pass their special tests will become candidates for one of the 10 demon masters. For the first round, he warns them that the Demon Palace fighters will be testing their bodies. As soon as the guys heard the news, they started complaining because they didn't think this was a real test after they'd been expecting something much tougher for the competition. The martial masters shake off their worries and check their bodies to see who is truly worthy. Those with big bodies feel relieved and happy, thinking they've earned a free pass to move on to the next stage. Jean Gak, one of the instructors, steps up to Unsil to check him over. The instant his fingers brushed his own skin, he was certain Unsil had already died. He wonders why Unsil showed up at all, but he immediately feels the terrifying killing intent radiating from Unsil's body. He knows he can't pass since his life tending to dead bodies has left him without a living body, but Unsil is sure they haven't reached the end, and soon the instructor declares the first trial over, causing one of the boys to rage against their unfair rules. He wonders why they bother hosting a competition when they only care about physical strength. Hyuk then tells the kid that he knows nothing. Hyuk says that to truly master martial arts, you need to build up your muscles and strengthen your bones. Hyuk teases the guy for failing such a simple task despite being given a fair chance, but the lad insists he deserves a try, only for Hyuk to laugh it off and say not to worry since the second trial is next, and he'll pick anyone who can learn the art of fighting, even if their body is weak. Hyuk doesn't hesitate to say they've reached the second trial. It comes as a shock to learn that the second trial forces them to fight until only one survivor remains. Most of the guys are shocked by the orders, but the overexcited lad from before doesn't hesitate, locking his sights on the target he needs to kill, who looks like Unsil. He lunges with a spear aimed straight at Unsil to end his life, only to find the weapon misses its mark and strikes someone else instead. The spear punched through the man in red standing next to him, who is the attacker's rival. The man in the red shirt screams in pain as he crashes to the ground, coughs up blood, and then falls still. Blood sprays onto Unsil's face as he stares at the man lying dead in a pool of his own blood after being struck by a spear. With just a quick look, Unsil realizes the death wasn't random. The spear pierced the heart but spared the ribs, proving the attacker, Won Chung, was incredibly fast. Now that he's knocked out his first opponent, Won Chung starts bragging about it. From his spot, Hyuk realizes that while Won Chung makes quick calls, he often lacks common sense. And since Jin Gak agrees with him that looking like a target in this place is dangerous, Hyuk can't help but feel disappointed in the group. He still thinks that scaring the other rivals will make them take the deadly situation seriously. Before anyone could react, things went sideways and the whole arena became a place of bloodshed. The younger boys, terrified by the sight of death, begin to panic, but Hyuk and Jin Gak suddenly spot one of them acting surprisingly calm. He stands pressed against the wall, ignoring the chaos swirling all around him. He also notices Unsil staying calm in the chaos, and that makes him take back his words calling everyone foolish. Unsil stays calm, thinking the others are fools for being scared, because his only job is to stay alive, not to kill. Unsil soon learns that he can stay alive as long as he keeps his head clear and acts without emotion. Unsil bows down to touch the bodies on the ground and figure out how they died. While the chaos unfolds, one guy with a long-range weapon spots Unsil standing still and not helping. So he gets angry and throws his weapon at Unsil, narrowly missing his head and smashing the box on his back. The guy mocks Unsil, making fun of the box he carries and asking what a monk like him could possibly need inside it. It turns out the box held the birthday gifts from his grandfather, and smashing it just made him even angrier. Inside the sword, Unsil finds a short blade, but his opponent laughs at him, calling it puny and mocking Unsil's chances until a cool guy suddenly appears from behind and slashes him down. As Unsil talks, he stays locked on his work and keeps ignoring the guy. The dude realizes Unsil knows no fighting skills and sees him as an easy target. While staring at Unsil, a guy jumps out from behind and tries to strike, but he slices the attacker down instantly, like he can see right through to the back. Hyuk then asks Jin Gak about the cool guy holding the special extermination sword. He wonders why he holds the Black Soul's legendary sword, a blade once wielded by the mightiest swordsman to ever walk the land. Jin Gak tells us the man's name is Nung Wu Gong, and reports say he found the Black Soul's secret manual right beside his sword. It seems Wu Gong studied from the manual alone, becoming the only one left to carry Black Soul's legacy. Jin Gak jokes that Wu Gong lacks strength, but he's still the favorite to win because nobody else looks like they can beat him. But Jin Gak thinks things could turn out differently if unexpected surprises pop up. Once the chaos fades, Wu Gong and Unsil are the only ones left, and Wu Gong can't believe that Unsil made it all the way to the finish. Wu Gang brags that if he kills Unsil, he'll be one of the 10 demon masters, so he's already itching to make it happen. Even though Unsil is facing what looks like the toughest fighter in the arena, he shows no fear and keeps his icy face, because he already knows the guy's secret weakness. Unsil grips his short sword, sure that he can win the fight. Wu Gang swings his sword at Unsil with a flurry of slashes, but to everyone's surprise, Unsil dodges every single blow without getting hurt. Hyuk and Jin Gak watch from the sidelines as Unsil takes heavy hits, but they know he's twisting his body just enough to dodge any fatal blow. Jin Gak suddenly realizes that Unsil has learned all of Wu Gang's moves just by studying the bodies he left behind. Jin Gak is so amazed by how sharp Unsil's eyes are that he feels completely blown away. Unsil goes out of his way to annoy Wu Gang by mocking his sword skills, claiming he's only been slicing flesh without ever landing a real hit. Jin Gak knows Unsil is taunting Wu Gang, but he fears he won't be able to catch the perfect moment to end the fight. Unsil's trick works, and a furious Wu Gang charges at him, desperate to finish the fight. As Wu Gang rushes at Unsil, Unsil realizes he only has one shot and quickly uses clues from the dead bodies to find his answer. He saw that Wu Gang's final blow always instinctively targets the heart and head, so Unsil has already started making his own plan to prepare for it. Right before Wu Gang's sword could hit him, Unsil dropped low to dodge, leaving Wu Gang wide open for Unsil's counterattack. His grandfather used to warn him that a tiny spot in the neck, which every martial artist fears, can be used to take down even a master if a child hits it hard enough with perfect aim. Unsul is aiming right at that spot, and Wu Gang didn't even see that he opened himself up to Unsul's short sword pushing straight through. Wu Gang couldn't dodge in time, and now his neck hangs over Unsul's blade while his blood rushes out fast. In the end, Wu Gang's body hits the ground, leaving Unsul as the only one standing. Jingak and Hyuk are stunned to find this is the surprise twist Jingak had been warning about. Hyuk felt let down that Wu Gang fell to Unsul, especially since he had hoped Wu Gang could master the powerful black soul sword techniques they taught him. Even though he didn't want to, Hyuk had to call Unsul the winner of the second round. Suddenly, Unsul finds himself alone in an empty space, watching his grandfather stand far away in the distance. He rushes excitedly to his grandfather, only for his joy to vanish when he turns around faceless, as the old man frantically shouts that he can't see him before the truth crashes over Unsul. Suddenly, Unsul wakes up and finds himself on a ship. He knew he had fainted from losing too much blood and believed he'd died in the fight without feeling any pain, which meant a powerful healer from the demonic palace must have saved him. He realizes the tough-looking men on the ship survived the first test, and soon the hatch opens as Jingak tells them to step off onto the next challenge, Hell Island. Jingak shouts at the candidates to follow him into the caves where they will live, ordering them to leave their old gear behind and wait outside until they have put on the new clothes and swords ready for them. It seems they're free to choose a cave that feels right for them, and almost instantly, Unsul finds the perfect spot for his stay. Meanwhile, two guys are fighting over who gets to pick a spot, each insisting it's theirs by right. Soon a stranger arrives to tell them to stop squabbling over the caves, claiming there are plenty of other great spots to pick, while Unsul secretly laughs at how clueless the candidates are about the second trial since they've all let their guard down. Unsul spots that most of them are dressed in fine clothes, showing they likely belong to powerful and respected clans. Unsul finally realizes the second trial was just a test to see who they could kill. While he stood there checking out the area, Jingak popped up behind him and asked why he hadn't picked a cave yet, noting that he'd been moving too slow since the very beginning. It turns out Jingak has been watching Unsul since the last trial, simply waiting to see which cave he chooses. He tells him to hurry and points toward a tiny opening in the cave. The cave is oozing with mud, and one of the challengers mocks the guy for choosing a lair that fits his station. But Jingak is blown away, calling Unsul a genius just for making that choice. The cave looks tiny at the entrance, but it's huge inside for training, and the small opening keeps out trouble since most people turn away just from looking at it. Jingak felt happy that Unsul had seen everything clearly. Soon, the candidates emerge from the caves in black, gathering together to listen to Jingak. Jingak says that Hell Island is the home to 10 martial arts halls where you can learn the deadly arts of one of the 10 demonic sects, with each building teaching a different one. It seems they can choose to study all the arts or pick just one to master. Plus, they get to choose exactly when to sleep, play, train, or just do whatever they feel like. Unsul is shocked because the second trial was a nightmare, and he can't believe they'll let them do whatever they want without checking. The candidates rush to pick the Fire Rain Sword sect's powerful arts as their top choice without wasting a second on a debate. Unsul watched everyone dash toward the Fire Rain building, the most powerful sect of all. Unsul admits the Fire Rain is amazing, but says it won't help him since he never learned martial arts. He didn't waste a second thinking about which martial arts would work best for him. Unsul heads over to the Wandering Beast Pavilion, a shabby-looking building that shows the sect has fallen on hard times and barely hangs on among the 10 demon sects. They keep their top spot alive simply because they've trained so many powerful fighters over the years. Unsul remembered his grandfather's words about the sect, then suddenly saw something moving underground before a head popped up and asked if he had come to train to become one of the 10 demon masters, revealing that the speaker was the master of the Wandering Beast Pavilion, Sawu. Unsul gathers his courage and tells Sawu that he's there to learn the fighting skills of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Sawu cast a quick look at Unsul and noticed how weak his body had become. After weighing the danger, he tells Unsul to go home, explaining that his body is too weak and the training would kill him. Unsul tries to convince Sawu that he can survive anything if he learns the Wandering Beast Pavilion's martial arts, but Sawu is shocked that Unsul even knows about it since that art is about to disappear forever. Even though Sawu tells Unsul that their martial arts are so hard they can even kill a genius in a day by changing his body, he warns Unsul to stop before he tries. He tells Unsul to go, but Unsul surprises everyone by bowing to Sawu and thanking him for teaching him their martial arts. This is enough to scare Sawu into finally agreeing to become Unsul's servant, though Sawu makes sure Unsul knows he's only teaching him because the Demon Palace commanded it. After finally breaking free from beneath the ground, Wu steps out and tells Unsul to start calling him Master Sa. Unsul tries to introduce himself, but Wu cuts him off coldly, reminding him that he's nothing more than a training dummy. Without wasting another moment, Wu urges everyone to start the training and raises his hand to make a strange finger sign. Suddenly, a powerful wave strikes Unsul, blinding him instantly, but before he can panic, Wu reassures him that the secret sect technique only blocked his sight for a short time. Wu insists that mastering this basic martial art from a sect is a must for anyone walking the wandering beast path. Unsul is baffled by what he just heard. So Wu explains that the wandering beast path is designed to sharpen his senses and give him reflexes like a beast's. Wu explains that the sect's fighting styles change based on who learns them, which makes even the wandering beast path so tough that only a few can truly master it. But Wu tells Unsul that if he can master it, he'll earn the senses of a wandering beast. Wu laughs it off, saying most people never make it this far. He then tells Unsul he'll be back in an hour and urges him to get used to being blind by then. Once Wu leaves, Unsul realizes he was mistaken because losing his sight didn't make his other senses any sharper. He recalls Wu saying the trip back would take an hour, and he realizes that feels like forever on his journey. He realizes he needs to adapt fast right now since he's in a competition, and if he gets caught off guard, he's finished. Without hesitation, Unsul's mind paints a picture of being caught in a surprise attack, flooding his veins with fear and energy that force him to leap instantly from one spot to the next. But Unsul loses, and he realizes that since he can't see, keeping his balance is now everything. An hour later, Wu comes back expecting to find Unsul cowering in fear, only to be shocked by seeing him instead jumping around in a way no one else has ever seen. Wu notices that Unsul has already gotten used to not seeing because he's been fighting a ghost in his head. But Wu isn't convinced and chooses to test Unsealed anyway. He swings his sword at him, daring him to dodge. The training keeps going, and 3 days later, Unsealed has taken several heavy beatings from Wu. Wu is surprised that Unsealed isn't questioning his training, but is just accepting it instead. Wu then questions Unsealed for his silence and lack of doubt about his training. Unsealed replies that Wu once said the core of the Wandering Night Pavilion's fighting style is about finding enlightenment, which leads him to believe everything he does has a specific reason. Wu is stunned by Unsealed's answer and admits he was actually right. He suggests they keep training, but when Wu charges at Unsealed, the latter's instincts wake up and let him feel the attack coming right before it happens. He knows he can't dodge it, so he has to block the attack. With the final split second of the attack, Unsealed raises his sword and blocks Wu's strike, shocking Wu to his core that Unsealed could do this in just 3 days. Even though Unsealed's guard wasn't completely closed, the hit still knocked him flat on his back. Just then, Wu tosses a bamboo bottle at him, yelling for him to drink whatever's inside. Unsealed the drink, expecting water, only to be shocked as energy surged through him like a flood, instantly filling his body with missing strength. It turns out the liquid was the life-saving spiritual water Wu had guarded his entire life. Even though Wu gave it away, he isn't worried it was a waste because he finally found the once-in-a-lifetime genius he'd been praying for his whole life. Once he felt strong again, they started their intense training all over, fighting each other with everything they had. After swinging at both of them for a couple of minutes, Wu suddenly stopped attacking and burst out laughing, having finally found what he had been looking for all along. Suddenly, Unsealed could see again, and Wu's honest voice begged him to drop the dream of being a demon master and join the sect as a true disciple instead. Wu promises to turn him into one of the demonic faction's 10 strongest martial masters in just 10 years if he agrees. When Unsealed hears this, he is strongly tempted by the offer because he doesn't think Wu is lying, but then he remembers that his grandfather's killer is a skilled warrior. For this reason, Unsealed politely turns down the offer to learn from the Wandering Beast Pavilion, telling Wu that he has bigger dreams and wants to become a demon master instead. Wu tells him that even the grand heavenly demon emperor, a genius who can invent his own martial arts, couldn't learn the 10 demonic sect styles, so he should forget about that idea. Wu explains that every fighting style fits a specific body and energy type, while Unsealed adds that since no one can master more than a few, picking just one is the fastest way to become the strongest in the demonic faction. Despite his constant preaching, Unsealed never wavers, forcing Wu to back down. Despite feeling let down, he promises Unsealed he'll teach him a whole new style of fighting. Unsealed is shocked to learn that the Wandering Beast sect teaches its arts without following a set of steps or theories, even though he only knows the very basics. Wu also shares with Unsealed that he's been training in his sect while Beast Path. It suddenly hit Unsealed that every sword move Suwu had thrown at him was actually a technique from the wild beast path. Unsealed bows deeply to thank Suwu for his help, but Suwu insists he stop, explaining that the act was simply following the Demon Palace's orders. While Unsealed insists he can never forget the elixir Suwu gave him, Suwu urges him to let it go. Suwu says this is what life in the Jianghu looks like, and he'd much rather forget all those favors and grudges than carry them around. Once everything was settled, Unsealed knelt to bow to Suwu before finally walking away. Suwu stares at him in shock and deep respect as he walks away, wondering just how rare such a gem really is. As Unsealed walks through the forest, he suddenly feels like he can sense everything around him and wonders if this new power is because he has finally learned the wild beast path. Since the exhaustion is too much to bear, Unsealed realizes he must learn to control it, or he'll never be able to get any real rest. In that instant, he makes the hard choice to shut out everything around him. He finishes the task and notices a sharp gap between what looks normal and the heightened world he usually sees. He unsealed the map and quickly checked it to see where he should head next. He suddenly realizes they have only a limited time to train, so he has to hurry. After giving it serious thought, he realizes he must seek out the demonic sect founder, the same rival of the great heavenly demon emperor from 700 years ago. While discussing the matter, he realizes that since time is running out, joining the powerful Fire Rain Sword sect founded by him is his only choice. And when he arrives at the exclusive building, he knocks on the door only to find Instructor Jean-Gak shocked to see him standing there. Unsealed bowed to him, admitting he had come to study the Fire Rain Sword sect's martial arts, and was even more stunned when he realized Jean-Gak himself was a master of that same sect. Jean-Gak tells Unsealed to follow him, explaining that the early candidates have already passed the first part of the test and moved on to the second, which is just one of 3 stages, including the final, hardest level. Jean-Gak questions why he only arrived at the Fire Rain sect after 2 weeks, and Unsealed explains he spent that time mastering martial arts at the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Jean-Gak casually asks if Unsealed learned the Wild Beast Path, and when Unsealed confirms it, he is shocked because even though he knows Unsealed is a genius, he can't believe he mastered it in just 2 weeks. He thinks Suwu told him to go his own way because he just couldn't handle the pressure. Once they step into the training hall, Jean-Gak drops his smile, introduces himself as the trial's overseer, and warns Unsealed that the Fire Rain sword art might be too dangerous for a beginner. He replied that he thanks Jean-Gak for his worry, but explained he has his heart set on learning the Fire Rain sword sect's sword skills. Since that's how it is, Jean-Gak slams his foot down and a training guide pops up beside him, explaining that it's the beginner's manual for the 13 moves of Fire Rain. He pushes him to read the manual and start training, but Unsealed is baffled because all he sees are scribbles on a big sheet of paper with no clue on what to do next. Jean-Gak is stunned by what he just heard, so he rushes to Unsealed to beg for a sword manual. Unsealed, she gives him a shocking answer. He can't do it because until the competition, he has never learned anything about swordsmanship. That answer sent a chill racing down Jean-Gak's spine, leaving him completely stunned. Jean-Gak had to ask again, and Unsealed nodded, saying he never knew anything about fighting before. Jean-Gak isn't disappointed. Instead, he's impressed by what Unsealed has already done, and he realizes that with the right lessons, Jean-Gak could become something truly special. Jean-Gak asks Unsealed if he can still read the sword steps, even when he can't see them, and Unsealed says yes. He unsealed the manual and read the instructions that needed to be followed before trying out the moves inside. Unsealed tries to follow the guide, but he ends up doing such a terrible job that Jean-Gak is left in shock, unable to believe he has to start teaching the newcomer how to move and carry himself in a place where they must choose one of the 10 demon masters. Jean-Gak steps over to Unsealed and guides him into the perfect relaxed stance, and as soon as he explains it, Unsealed adjusts his posture perfectly, leaving Jean-Gak amazed that he understood without any pressure. Since Jean-Gak's stance is now set, he tells Unsealed that he will start teaching the Fire Rain's 13 forms right away. He hands him a sword and begins teaching him the precise movements needed to master it. And, just as expected, Unsealed follows every lesson from Jean-Gak with perfect understanding. Jean-Gak stood there, completely blown away, and finally admitted that Unsealed was truly talented. After training, Jean-Gak asked him to picture an enemy and unleash his Fire Rain technique. And though the boy was confused about fighting a fake opponent, Jean-Gak explained that seeing sword intent in his moves was the key to passing this test and entering the intermediate hall. As soon as Unsealed hears the news, he knows he's finally got his shot to prove himself, but he has to seize it fast because it won't wait around. Just as he suspected, the enemy hiding in his mind was the same man who killed his grandfather. Unsealed drew his blade and unleash the first of the 13 fire rain forms with deadly precision and fury. Jean Gak freezes in shock as he watches Unsealed swing the sword and land every move with perfect skill. Unsealed keeps moving through all 13 forms until Jean Gak spots a strange change in the fire rain technique. Usually, the sword dance is soft and lively, but Unsealed wields it with a sharp, deadly edge. Jean Gak can't believe his eyes, for changing the basic moves of sword technique is something only a grandmaster can do. Jean Gak also sees that the sword moves carry a terrifying, deadly anger, as if he were fighting someone who had deeply hurt him. Jean Gak can't believe the Fire Rain sect's sacred sword moves are being treated like nothing, and this makes him realize that Unsealed must have had a very different childhood growing up. Before you could blink, Unsealed realized he was already changing the 13 Fire Rain sect forms. He wonders if the wild beast path is to blame, and though he'd love to mix it with his current style, he knows that would create a completely new art, losing the original Fire Rain 13 forms. Remembering this, he quickly returns to the natural Fire Rain's 13 forms, making him look far more dangerous than before. He pictures his target right in front of him and lets all his fury loose. Jean Gak stares in shock and has to admit that Unseal is incredibly fast. As Unseal closes in on his mark, he becomes so absorbed in the moment that he treats it as real and realizes he must stop his target from slipping away. So, he chooses to throw every last trick he has at once. Unseal lets loose a burst of raw rage, hacking wildly to bring his foe down, but the force of his own fury throws him off balance and sends his sword from his grasp. Jean Gak watches Unseal get beaten by his opponent, but instead of getting angry, he is actually impressed. Unseal is stunned when Jean Gak tells him he passed the test. Jean Gak tells him that the real test isn't just knowing the sword, but proving he can use all 13 forms of the Fire Rain in a true fight. Jean Gak helps Unseal lift his sword and lets him know he's passed the test. Jean Gak tells Unseal how amazing his Fire Rain trick is and tells him to go on over to the next room. Unseal is so thankful to Jean Gak for teaching him sword fighting from scratch, knowing how incredibly frustrating and tiring it must have been for Jean. Unseal bows deeply to Jean Gak, showing his thanks for all the help he's given so far. After telling Unseal to keep pushing, Jean Gak admits he can feel the deadly power of his sword growing strong. Before leaving, Jean Gak tells Unseal never to let his rage control him. As they say goodbye, Jean Gak finally realizes that Unseal could master the wild beast path in just 2 weeks because she learns with incredible speed. Because of this, he is rushing into the next chamber even faster than Jean Gak ever imagined. Jean Gak started doubting if Unseal could reach the intermediate chamber, but after training with her, he now knows she definitely will. Jean Gak is pretty sure that by the time he meets the instructor Qion Mugang, the guy will be completely obsessed with Unseal. Unseal walks into the middle room, but the instructor doesn't greet him warmly. Instead, he waves Unseal away because they've already had enough. Qion stays cool and distant because Unseal's quick success in the first challenge didn't impress him, and he's certain that Unseal's natural talent isn't good enough to handle the harder second stage. Unseal tells Qion he was late because he was training with a wandering beast, but Qion doesn't believe it, thinking Unseal must have survived that harsh training somehow, so Qion simply points to a seat for him since he passed the first test. Qion goes on to warn the candidates that the Thundering Sword, a technique built on lightning-fast movements, can easily backfire and hurt them if they aren't skilled enough, just like the Fire Rain forms. Even so, they must learn it because it's the foundation of their training, focusing on honing their sword skills rather than winning fights. Qion steps up and points to a young fighter named Baike Hansong, telling him to choose someone to face in a duel. Baike grins with a wicked smirk and asks if he can pick anyone he wants, and Qion gives him the go-ahead. Just as we expected, Baike pointed at Unseal and said he wanted him to be his opponent. Qion is eager to argue, but Baike reminds him that he's already been given the chance to choose whoever he wants. Qion keeps arguing with Baike about testing his knowledge on a new student, even begging him to choose someone else, until Unseal steps in and says the instructor should go ahead with it. Qion is stunned by the news, and Unseal explains that since Qion learned swordsmanship from Jean Gak, he should practice against others to improve his chances of mastering it. To Qion, Unseal is just trying to save face, but he won't stop him. Qion tells them to move on, hoping they reach the advanced chamber, while Baike thinks he's the luckiest guy ever since he got a rookie to crush and kill just to show off his skills to the whole class. So, they grab wooden swords and got ready to fight. Baike praises Unseal's courage, but warns him that bravery alone won't keep him alive in the dangerous world of the Murim. Baike sprints straight at Unseal, but Unseal slips past his strike without breaking a sweat. Bai AK is impressed, yet she doesn't think Unseal can keep this up for long. He strikes with renewed force, leaving Qion no choice but to meet the blow with his sword. Watching their swords clash, Bai AK realizes Qion is a total beginner, which makes him even more eager to win. Bai AK keeps having fun with Qion and even brings out his thundering sword trick, but Unseal stays cool and easily dodges every move Bai AK throws at him. By now, Qion can see frustration starting to creep in. He realizes Bai AK isn't very good with his sword, yet Unseal is dodging everything as if he can guess exactly what Bai AK will do next. Qion starts to believe Unseal might have truly mastered the wild beast path, because he knows firsthand how hard it is to learn even a simple technique that usually takes years under a master. Bai AK can't believe Unseal actually learned it in just 2 weeks. Qion turns the moment serious, telling Unseal that the duel isn't just about dodging since he's there to judge their swordplay and test their reflexes. After hearing this, Unseal steps up to face Bai AK and unleashes his fire rain in all 13 forms. But Bai AK feels no danger from the technique, since it looks just a bit different from the 13 known forms. He's so sure of himself that he thinks he can easily slip past that slash without even trying. But he quickly realizes he's been wrong because the sword technique strikes him so hard that he struggles to defend himself. Bai AK's mind races with doubts, wondering if Unseal is just playing a twisted game with the 13 forms to mock him. He also suspects Unseal might be trying to catch the instructors just to get bumped up to the advanced room. Seeing that he was about to be disgraced, Bai AK decided to tap into the deadly Azura sword style to save himself. He unleashes a devastating blood-shattering strike to try and end Unseal instantly, knowing that since he allowed any sword style, he has no choice but to let this deadly move from the Azura sect take its course. Qion watches in shock as Unseal stays perfectly balanced even while fighting that deadly style. He can't stop thinking about Unseal mastering the wild beast path, even though he really doesn't want to believe it. Unseal keeps dodging the attacks until Bai AK unleashes a deadly technique called the Bloody Wind Warping Moon, which even Qion finds terrifying as he watches Bai AK leap toward Unseal, only for Unseal to suddenly counter with his flaming sword and send Bai AK crashing to the ground, coughing up blood as if dead. Everyone's eyes go wide with shock and horror as they struggle to believe Bai AK might really be gone. Unseal turns to walk back with a training sword, while Qion looks down at Bai AK's still body and realizes the blow to his vital spot has truly ended his life. Qion turns to Unseal and asks if he has always belonged to the Wandering Night Pavilion, but Unseal shakes his head and says no. Qion can't help but ask if he really mastered the wild beast path in just 2 weeks, to which Unseal admits he only learned the very basics. Qion scoffs in disgust at the sight, teasing Unseal for needing a lesson, and then snaps to tell him to clean up the mess he just made. Soon, the candidates start grumbling and complaining that Unseal is wrong for killing someone during a normal spar, but Qion quickly stops them by warning that they are on Hell Island where a lethal move on you means you're next. Keeping this in mind, Qion starts the training all over again as the candidates begin sparring with one another. Qion banishes everyone who failed the sparring trial, telling them they've been sent away. He tells them they're free to find a new place for their training since their time at the Fire Rain sect has come to an end. The failed candidates beg for another shot, but Qion shakes his head and says no more chances are coming. Qion believes they passed the first round thanks to their physical strength, but to master the Fire Rain sword, they'll need enough talent to push past their own limits. Because they couldn't push past their own limits, they failed. Once the losers and winners had packed up and gone home, Qion noticed Unseal was still standing there, so he asked him why he wasn't leaving. Confused, Unseal asks Qion if he has to leave too, and Qion nods, saying yes. He tells him he has won and earned the right to move into the advanced chamber. But Unseal tells Qion he'd rather stay right here in the middle chamber. Qion looks puzzled and asks Unseal why he'd do that, to which Unseal replies that he only knows the Fire Rain's 13 forms and hasn't learned anything else in the intermediate chamber yet. Qion is shocked that Unseal has mastered the wild beast path, which helped him see through Bai AK's attack, though he insists he hasn't learned anything at all. Unseal stands his ground without a second thought, insisting he hasn't learned a single thing yet. Seeing that Unseal isn't giving up, Qion has no choice but to teach him the Fire Rain Thundering Sword, an upgrade to the Fire Rain's 13 forms. But he lets Unseal know he hates it when people try to pull tricks on him just to stand out. He warns Unseal that his head will roll if he learns any sword moves other than the Fire Rain 13 forms. And 4 days later, after grueling training with Qion, who confirms that Unseal still lacks the basics, It is clear from the fierce look on Unsol's face that he is ready to die trying to master the martial arts. It finally clicked for Qion how Unsol could have mastered the wild beast path in just 2 weeks. Unsol is already swinging that thundering sword around, proving just how fast he learns. Unsol pushes forward with his usual intensity, even as Qion tries to stop him, only to be met with skepticism when Qion reveals he has mastered the twisting fire rain thundering sword, a flashy set of moves that can't possibly work in a real fight. Qion sees that Unsol is using every move he knows as if he's trying to take someone's life. Unsol feels puzzled because he thinks you only learn sword tricks so you can use them in real life. Qion admits that killing intent is needed for demonic arts, but when aiming for a higher realm, the fire rain sword leaves that killing side behind. Qion warns Unsol that he must clear his mind of his violent thoughts, or else he will accidentally create a fighting style that ends up hurting him. Suddenly, Unsol realizes Qion is actually saying the very same thing Jingak told him. Qion admits that he once carried the same deadly urge to kill, which made him put an end to anyone who stood in his path. But this cost him his honor and pride, and his fighting strength began to fade away. Qion tells his son that while these deadly techniques might seem like a path to greatness, they're actually just obstacles that must be dropped to truly master the sword. Just as he hears this, Unsol remembers his grandfather's warning that swordsmen are cursed by a past filled with despair and misfortune, which is why the Murim people never speak of their histories. Unsol asks Qion why he's telling him all this, and Qion replies that he wants Unsol to remember that he, too, once lived with killing intent. Qion asks Unsol for his name, and when he hears it, he realizes he is the survivor of the second trial Jingak mentioned. Qion warns Unsol that he's in trouble because he's missing the most basic skills of martial arts. Qion tells him that his rivals have been training in martial arts since they were just children. Qion warns that starting to learn the fire rain sword technique in the advanced chamber would only push them further apart. Qion warns Unsol that he must quickly learn the basics of martial arts to build a strong foundation for mastering the fire rain sword. So, Qion decides to teach Unsol his own special lightning technique that no one else can match. But before they start, Qion warns Unsol that he burned off the nerve endings in his own fingers because he couldn't master the deadly technique, meaning if anything goes wrong, Unsol could lose control of his arms and never reach the advanced chamber. So Qion asks if he really still wants to try. Without a second thought, Unsol agrees to lose his arms because he doesn't mind sacrificing his soul if it means getting his revenge. A month later, Unsol finally mastered the legendary lightning and thunder arts, earned his freedom from the intermediate chamber, and still felt he'd taken too long even though Qion said he was quick. Now that he has mastered those techniques, it's finally time to step up and tackle the advanced level. The instant he steps through the door into the advanced chamber, everyone stops and stares, and Unsol feels a new kind of fear from the trainees because they've finally seen what he can do. Unsol can't believe that people think being an undertaker is a low job, while killing is seen as a great honor. The instructor pushes Unsol to sit down right now because the lesson is about to start. Since there's a new trainee among them, the instructor takes the chance to teach the central secrets of the Rain Sword and the 7 teachings. He begins by explaining that they must learn to balance power in every part of their body so they can stand firm and unmoving. After staring at the note for a minute, Unsol finally understands that without the skills from the intermediate room, he would never have made sense of it. Once the instructor finishes teaching for the day, he asks Unsol to follow him. The instructor then leads Unsol to the garden just behind the room. He points out that you can beat an enemy with a sword even when you don't have one yourself. In this moment, he tells that person they no longer need the sword to master sword arts. Then the instructor pulls out a plant branch, points it right at Unsol, and asks him a very important question. The instructor tells Unsol that since his friends have already learned the first form of the fire rain sword while he was busy in the intermediate chamber, they're now discussing the theory, but Unsol has no hope of learning from him unless he can answer the question about what he will do if he lacks a sword. So he takes a deep breath and replies that if he has no sword, he will simply use his opponent's. He rushes to snatch a branch from the instructor, but before he can touch a leaf, the instructor disappears and suddenly pops up right behind him. The instructor yelled at Unsol for rushing his answer. While the instructor was talking, Unsol didn't listen at all because he was too busy wondering when he had stepped up behind him. Unsol tries to chase the instructor again, but the same bad result happens once more. Unsol soon gets frustrated because he can't guess where the instructor will move next. Unsol didn't expect to catch him so easily, yet he couldn't believe he wasn't even able to keep track of the man's every move. Unsol feels dread creeping in, knowing that if he can't wow the instructor right now, he has zero chance of making it into the advanced chamber. Unsol finally decides to push the wild beast path to its absolute limit, even if only for a single moment. With his mind made up, he leaps for the branch, but gets sent flying backward by the instructor just as he's about to grab it. Unsol hits the ground in total disappointment, but before he can dwell on his failure, the instructor rushes over and pats him on the shoulder. The instructor bursts out laughing before telling him he has passed the test. Unsol is stunned and confused, unable to believe he passed the test when he couldn't even touch the old man. The instructor skips his question and tells him he'll start learning the Shining Mystique technique right away, urging him to arrive even earlier than his friends. Unsol happily thanks his teacher for his kindness and leaves, but as the instructor watches the falling leaves, he secretly knows Unsol actually succeeded, having tricked him with a flying lesson that made it look like a failure. The instructor is so impressed that he admits he expects great things from Unsol. As Unsol walks deeper into the woods, he stops resting and starts moving his inner energy, knowing a fight could start any second. Suddenly, he feels more than one presence behind him and uses his sharp instincts to guess exactly how many are out there. Soon, 5 guys pop up behind him, and they all look ready to fight. They warn Unsol that he's been acting too proud since the middle room and have come to teach him a lesson. The 5 brag about being known as the 5 Peak Swords because they are geniuses who have come to kill him. Instead of wasting time arguing with the 5, Unsol keeps his senses sharp and soon spots someone else hiding in the shadows. Right as the 5 are about to make their move, a scary guy pops up from behind and knocks out the leader. He crashes to the ground from just one hit, sending fear down the spines of everyone else. They spin around and spot their attacker, a tough trainee named Seo Jinha. Jinha completely ignores the other 4 and turns to Unsol, but first he shouts at them to get lost since he has nothing to do with them. The 4 grab their last guy and bolt away, vowing to get their revenge on Unsol. There is no doubt in Unsol's eyes that Jinha was a force to be reckoned with. Once Jinha is sure the 4 are gone, he turns to Unsol to ask what seems like a very important question. He thrusts his sword forward, demands to know the stranger's name, and leaves Unsol completely baffled. That morning in class, the teacher called Unsol up to show off his new skill. Unsol gripped his sword, took a sharp breath, and began slashing with perfect aim. After swinging for a couple of minutes, he finally stops, and the deep cuts in the ground show exactly what he just did. Even the instructor is blown away because Unsol has already fused that deadly technique with his fierce intent. Once the instructor finishes showing off his skills, he calls up the next student, who happens to be Seo Jinha, as he steps onto the stage and walks past Unsol. He watches Jinha transform his fire rain sword move into a perfect counter to what Unsol just showed. Unsol knew that this was a warning. Unsol steps right up to Jinha and asks who he is. Jinha shouts at Unsol, convinced he's just acting dumb to avoid answering the question. Jinha shows he knows not everyone on the island wants to become a demon master, and the moment Unsol hears this, the truth finally hits him. He sees the chance to learn the 10 demonic arts as amazing but rushed and messy, then realizes it's actually a trap designed to catch something. Unsol spoke calmly and honestly to ask Jinha about a spy, and his quiet tone made it clear he wasn't lying. Jinha slid his sword back into its sheath, muttered that Unsol wasn't who he was hoping to find, and warned him to stop making him angry before he lost control and ended up killing him. Once Jinha is gone, Unsol finally sees that there's a much bigger mystery hiding under the surface than he ever guessed. Unsol realizes that missing some things is perfectly normal since he has been so focused on training. Unsol banishes his doubts, knowing he'll fight whoever stands in his way, just as their instructor soon announces that their training is finally over. After giving them a speech to say goodbye and inspire them, he wished them luck on their journey through the Murim. Then the bell rings out. While the trainees are confused, the instructor leads them to the central stone mountain, and once everyone is gathered, he announces that the 3rd trial can finally begin. Most trainees are baffled when the head instructor mentions the 3rd trial instead of the 2nd, but only Unsol truly knows what's happening, and Jingak warns everyone that the quarters will soon be sealed until they've chosen their 10 demon masters. He shouts for them to grab whatever they need from the caves before they get locked in. One trainee asks how the 10 demon masters will be chosen, but the head instructor sighs in disappointment, noting they've been on the island this long without realizing the truth. They are expected to kill each other. Kyuk tells them they have to fight until only 10 people remain. Kyuk says it's up to them to choose their own way, whether that means running away or hiding, but he warns them that there will be a price to pay for those choices. As time goes on, they will shrink the safe zones for the trainees, and anyone caught outside will be slaughtered by the killer demons waiting behind them. A gaggle of terrifying demons in capes stands so scary that just looking at them makes your bladder go boom. Even Unsol begins to sweat, sensing the deadly energy radiating from the killer demons, and knowing they are masters of combat. Just then, a trainee jumps up and asks Hyuk if they can fight back against the killer demons. Hyuk bursts into loud laughter, amazed that some candidates are reaching even higher than the rest. Hyuk tells them they are free to fight the killer demons and even kill them if they want. He drops a bombshell. Anyone who kills a killer demon instantly becomes one of the 10 demon masters, turning the game into a wild ride. As soon as he speaks, the trainees realize that killing a monster is way harder than just fighting the rest of them. Hyuk tells the trainees that they can team up or ambush anyone without worry, since any move is fair if it helps them become a demon master. And once they leave the caves with their gear, they start their moves. Unsol quickly moves away from the crowd, knowing his training already made him a target, just like the forest ambush the so-called Peak 5 tried to set on him. Knowing he needs to reach safety, he heads straight for the wandering pavilion, only to find the ground feels strange under his feet when he gets there. He drops to his knees to feel the ground shift beneath him, and in that moment, he realizes someone is approaching. Suddenly, a guy being chased by other trainees bursts out of the bushes, begging Unsol for help because they are trying to kill him. Unsol snatches up his sword, ready to strike just in case this whole thing is a trap. The guy promises Unsol he'll pay him back if Unsol helps him get away from the chasers. Unsol looks at the man and sees that his wounds are real, so he starts to believe the guy is telling the truth. Unsol feels the 3 hunters closing in on him and wonders if they are working together. Even though Unsol has no interest in their game, he can't risk exposing himself to the man they are chasing. So with no choice but to hide, he slips himself and the man into a secret underground pouch, just as the trio arrives only to find it empty and left completely confused. They wander around the pavilion looking for their target, not knowing he's already down there, and when they finally give up and leave, their hunt must continue elsewhere. After Unsol verifies that the attackers are leaving, he and his partner step out from their hiding spot. The man is thankful for surviving and praising Unsol for his help, while Unsol quietly checks out the situation. Unsol realizes that Sawu must have dug a fresh hiding spot for him. As he hid, he felt the wild beast path's power spreading much further than usual. He could feel everything hidden in the dirt as clearly as if he were looking right at it. He realizes Sawu must have been trying to teach him the path of vibration. His partner, who only agreed to work together under specific conditions, finally reveals his name is Gumchul Young and that he belongs to the Blood Sect. Gum tries to ask Unsol for his name, but he ignores the question completely. Unsol won't sit down, so he gets up and heads toward his next stop. Gum tells him to stop, and after he asks if he can join for safety, Gum agrees, saying Unsol is trustworthy since he helped him escape earlier. Unsol stays quiet, so Gum decides that silence means a yes. He chased after Unsol with pure joy, acting like an excited puppy until they finally became partners. After a few minutes of walking, Unsol presses his hand into the ground to feel the earth's vibrations. Thanks to this, he realizes a fight is happening ahead and suggests taking a different path, leaving Gum amazed by what Unsol can do and desperate for lessons that our guy ignores while walking, until Unsol overhears one of the fighters vowing to avenge his fallen friends. The instant Unsol hears this, a familiar shiver runs all the way down his body. He sees the other man chasing revenge just as hard as he is. Gum sees something is wrong with Unsol and immediately asks him what's going on. But before he could speak again, Unsol told him they're taking a detour because he doesn't want to dodge the fight, but wants to jump right into it. As they near the battle zone, a trainee hides perfectly in a tree branch until he spots Unsol. Then he springs into action. However, Unsol easily blocks his attack, shocking the man who thought he was winning, and frantically asks how he could stop the forbidden ultimate concealment technique without being an assassin. Unsol ignores the question and slashes the attacker in half, admitting his wild beast path training saved him from a painful assassination technique, then decides to help the trapped man escape the assassins so he can finally show him how revenge feels. Just as they thought they had him beaten, Unsol suddenly pops up to attack them, catching them off guard so he can land his powerful slashes. Just as an assassin sneaks up behind Unsol to slash his head off, the hero twists away and escapes the deadly blow. Before he even realizes it, Unsol is surrounded by enemies who can't even match his fierce power. He chops down the others until only one guy is left standing. Just as he gets ready to face his opponent, the vengeful prisoner steps out from the shadows to take down the final assassin. After slaying the final assassin, he beams with the joy of a vengeance fulfilled, only to crash to the ground before Unsol can even ask him what happened. Gum slips out from his hiding spot in the bush to ask if the fight is finally over. Unsol doesn't even look at him. Instead, he bows down right next to the dude to get a better look. This is the moment Gum reveals his true nature and lunges to stab Unsol, but the clever Unsol sidesteps the blow before it can even get close. Gum is left speechless when Unsol suddenly blocks his surprise attack. Unsol shoves him back, accusing him of stealing the chance to ask the burning question that has been weighing on his mind. Gum ignores Unsol's questions because he is too worried about how Unsol found out about his betrayal, but Unsol reveals he knew the truth from the very beginning back in the underground shelter. Unsol noticed that Gum was hiding a bunch of secret weapons under his clothes. On top of that, he couldn't move right because his body was stiff from the weapons strapped to him. Unsol admits he kept Gum around just to see if Lion could help him later on. Gum goes crazy when he hears this, convinced that Unsol is talking nonsense because he thinks his own acting is perfect. He hurls his weapons at Unsol, but Unsol blocks them all so easily that Gum finds himself in real trouble. A chill of dread spreads through him as he realizes Unsol might actually be able to predict his every move. Before Unsol can even think about it, his speed lets him zip over to Gum and slice a wound into the guy's shoulder. Unsol whispers to Gum that while he holds the finest secret weapons, they are nothing without the skill to keep them out of sight. Refusing to quit, Gum makes one final desperate charge at Unsol, but the superior warrior simply moves through him and cuts him down, only to admit afterward that the fight was tough and he would have lost without his hidden weapons. He spins around to check Gum's face and sees that same blank, dead look most people have right before they pass away. On the other hand, the revenge guy wears a calm, finished look on his face, and Unsol wonders if he'll have that same look when he finally gets his revenge. Just before he runs, Unsol grabs the stranger's sword so he can finally fight with two blades, not knowing that some hidden creature in the bushes is watching his every move. Everyone has seen how he fights and realized just how deadly he is. The stranger admits Unsol is talented, but warns he must improve his skills or he won't survive. So the next day a group of trainees chase him down, desperate to see him gone. Unsur keeps running, even with cuts all over his body because he sees the attackers aren't going to stop. While he pushes forward, he's also figuring out a way to get out of this mess. While everything happens below, the head instructor and Jean Gak watch from the top of a mountain. The head instructor asks for an update, and Jean Gak reports that out of 86 trainees, only 41 are still alive. The head instructor feels proud that 41 trainees are still going strong after 3 days, proving they've truly learned their skills. He then decides it's time to put their skills to the test. As his attackers charge, Unsol lashes his daggers together and hurls them backward to knock one back. But knowing he can't win on open ground, he instantly decides to drag the fight into a new area where he might finally have a chance. Unsol dashes straight for the Fire Rain Sect building, unaware that the head instructor has just marked it as the next place to lock down. Unsol slips safely inside the building, leaving a trail of blood for his attackers to follow. They squeeze him into a tight spot and think they got him trapped, right until Unsol steps out from behind them. He nearly knocks the closest guy's head clean off, but he blocks it and shouts a warning to his friends that Unsol is right behind them. The guy proudly tells Unsol that they aren't stupid and won't be fooled by such cheap tricks. A wild fight breaks out, but Unsol sees the enemy's sword moves and slips away from every strike with ease. The instant he dodges, Unsol seizes his chance and swings his sword with all his might, cleanly severing his opponent's head from his neck. The rest of the crew goes crazy and charges at Unsol altogether, but they quickly realize that the cramped space is holding them back from doing much damage. While others might struggle, Unsol thrives in tight spots with no trouble at all. Unsol turns the tables, leaving his attackers struggling to keep up. After seeing that he could wipe them all out by taking them one by one, Unsol is about to move in when one attacker frantically throws his whip against the wall to stop him. The whip snaps right where Unsol stands, but he leaps clear just in time to escape the deadly swing. As the attackers realize they'd driven Unsol out of the narrow spot, they try to bolt, only to crash headlong into a brick wall guarded by the furious team leader, who watched them try to flee the fight. The crew argues they aren't fleeing, but simply trying to change their position. The captain tosses aside their excuses, swings his blade once to sever their heads, lets the blood spray, and then boasts that their trashy crew was exactly why he never wanted to sail with them. Now that the flies are gone, Unsol has to face the team's captain. He praises Unsol's skill, introduces himself as Wu Song, but gets annoyed when Unsol demands to know if he's the team leader, only to reveal that he doesn't care because he's about to kill Unsol anyway. Wu slashes his whip at Unsol to steal his sword, but the weapon snaps in Unsol's grip before he can react, leaving Wu to mock him for only knowing one defense move, which finally makes Unsol realize his enemy knows everything about his shining mystic technique. But the real question remains unsolved. Does Wu have a secret network of informants that Unsol doesn't know about? Wu sees that Unsol is lost in his own head, so he follows after him. Unsol barely slips out of the way as Wu's weapon leaves nothing but rubble in its path. Seeing that Wu can't be beaten in a tight spot, Unsul decides to make a break for the main hall. Unsul grabs his second sword and readies himself to fight Wu, but another sharp swing from Wu knocks him backward. Wu steps out of the shadows, muttering that Unsul isn't putting up enough of a fight, so he lashes out with his whip only to get caught by it himself. Wu mocks Unsul and tells him his time is almost up. Unsul sees that he can block Wu's hits with Shining Mystic, but he simply isn't strong enough to stop them. It becomes clear to him that he needs a destructive power strong enough to slice through steel, and just as the whip wraps around Unsul, Wu thinks he's won until Unsul starts plotting, which Wu calmly accepts because he knows Unsul is trying to summon the Shining Mystic. As Unsul bursts through the narrow space with a golden glow and the powerful lightning Xian taught him, his relaxed face instantly freezes in horror before he gets sliced cleanly in half without even feeling the blow. In a split second, his body just gives out and Wu crashes to the floor dead. Now that Wu is gone, Unsul feels the skill he just used taking its toll, and he coughs up blood. Even though the skill is incredibly strong, Unsul knows he can't use it just yet because it's far too advanced for his current level. Still, he's happy he won the fight, even though it cost him time, because he knows the restricted zones are about to change, and he has to move fast. Suddenly, he feels a dark presence behind him, and when he turns, a terrifying demon looms over him in all its monstrous glory. Fear crawls through Unsul's body because he can't stop his eyes from seeing the terrible truth. He finally realizes the forbidden areas must have changed while he was busy fighting, so he wonders if he can slip away now that he didn't accidentally end up there while trying to escape a battle. He shifts his foot slightly as he watches the killer demon, and when the creature stays still, Unsul thinks he is safe. He thinks the killer demon is letting him off easy, so he grabs that chance and runs for it. He dashes right past the terrifying demon, but his wild instincts snap into gear just as he spots the monster's head flying off its body, and he barely shifts his path to dodge, getting chopped in half. He nearly wet himself when he realized he couldn't feel the killer demon move, and without his wild beast senses, he would have been dead. Unsul realizes the killer demon's calm smile is just a trap because the moment he moves, the demon will strike, so he remembers Saw Wu's lesson about how carnivores and herbivores behave. He figured that if he bounces around like a zigzag, even the fastest hunters can't catch him. But in the end, the hunter still wins because the hunted eventually moves in a way that's easy to guess, letting the predator catch and kill them. Since predictability is the problem, Unsul lets out a loud scream before starting to move in a weird way to stay unpredictable, kicking his plan into motion with a zigzag dance that evades the killer demon until it figures him out, at which point he switches to a wild beast path to dodge its attacks. Just as he was about to make his final move, he realized the killer demon had reached him, sword pressed to his neck, sweat dripping down his face as he knew it was too late. But he is startled when the killer demon suddenly stops instead of killing him right there. Unsul glances around and spots that he's already stepped into the forbidden zone. Unsul pauses to think about what just happened and realizes he couldn't even make a single opening, even though he gave his all. Unsul spins around to leave, finally grasping that he was like a frog in a well with no hope, and once he's safe, he pauses to realize the demon killer is as deadly as his own grandfather. Unsul realizes that to even have a chance, he must learn to be better than a deadly demon. Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind him, and he spins around to see a man sitting on a rock, staring at him while talking about a wild beast trail that Unsul once learned. Unsul hears this and realizes everyone is already talking about him. He started to introduce himself, but stopped and shouted that Unsul is about to die, so there's no point in knowing his name. The guy rushes at Unsul, but Unsul stays cool and slips away to dodge the hit without a sweat. The dude was amazed that Unsul dodged his attack using his wild animal-like instincts. The man realizes Unsul is heading to become a demon master and must kill him now, so he shifts his strike just as a crucial thought breaks through Unsul's mind, only for Unsul to instantly push it aside before blocking the blow and feeling a strange shock run through his body from the sword's impact. After a few more moves, Unsul finally gets what he suspected. He recalls the day he and his grandfather handled the body, and his grandfather told him the man was killed by the 5 tiger severing blades of the Hebei Feng clan. His grandfather knew the truth because there was no cut on the man, yet every bone inside him was broken, and he explained that the 5 tiger severing blades work by sending a burst of energy into the opponent the moment their weapons connect. Unsul recalls his grandfather's words and speaks up to tell the guy that he knows he's using the 5 tiger severing blades, a special move from the Hebei Feng clan. The guy freezes in shock and starts badgering Unsul about where he got that info. It's like a swirling vortex that sucks in everything, letting them grab their enemy's weapon and throw it off balance. As soon as the enemy's weapon gets twisted, they grab the chance to knock them completely off their feet. Back then, Unseal was blown away by how his grandfather explained everything and asked if the Hebei Fong clan was the most powerful martial arts sect, only to be told that even though the technique might be dangerous, it would inevitably affect the users themselves since they have to get that close to their opponent. Recalling this, Unseal decides to use the technique against his opponent. Unseal rushes at the Fong man, who finally gets ready to fight him the way his clan teaches. Fong vows to rip out every demon seedling before they can grow into powerful demon masters. Just as Unseal is about to reach him, he plunges his sword into the ground, making Fong think he's crazy until Unseal dodges the attack and suddenly appears right beside him, showing Fong he was on the wrong side. Unseal slammed a kick into his gut, sending him reeling in pain, then snatched up his sword with a grin as her plan fell perfectly into place. Even though Unseal knows his last move didn't hurt much, he isn't scared because he knows his well-trained opponent won't be taken down by cheap tricks. Now he's happy because he finally knows how to fight back. While recalling the advanced instructor's advice, the man instantly told his opponent to strike first before he moved. Fong strikes quickly, but Unseal stops panicking and lets the attack roll over him, narrowly missing Fong's head the last second to make Fong realize Unseal is secretly using his own power against him. Fong can't believe it's true because his energy-absorbing trick is so powerful it can drag boulders from afar, making even master swordsmen struggle to defend against him. So he refuses to accept that a young girl like Unseal could possibly stop him until he decides to amp up his absorption just a bit more for his next strike. But he has no idea that his actions are actually making Unseal's sword swing even faster. Unseal gains the advantage, but just as he's about to strike Fong, the latter dodges his move because he was already expecting it, only for Fong to catch Unseal off guard by pulling back from his energy absorption technique. Just as Fong reaches him, Unseal unleashes the Fire Rain Sword First technique, shining mystique, and slashes Fong apart. Just like those Unseal faced before, Fong stands stunned as he sees Unseal flip the shining mystique from a shield into a deadly weapon, a risky move that forces his other abilities to turn against him. Even Fong has to admit Unseal is brilliant for changing how the attack works, and while Unseal gets to work, he surprises Fong by letting him live since he isn't part of Unseal's revenge and has no reason to kill him. Fong feels a heavy weight lift off his shoulders and tells them they should never run into each other again. Right as Unseal walks away, a shadowy figure steps up behind Fong, revealing itself as a deadly demon who admits Fong was only useful to the Orthodox sect while he still had power. Fong is shocked that the demon killer knows he's from the Orthodox sect, so the killer laughs and tells him he's way too weak for the demon palace before swinging his sword to kill him, while Xiao Jinho fights off a group of trainees from the hellish sect. As they fought, they managed to poison him, and now he has lost 95% of his will to fight. His enemies are telling him he's walking toward his death unless he can get the antidote from them, and they have no plans to share it. Xiao Jinho finally sees that going it alone wasn't a smart move since the group he's fighting against is way too organized. Refusing to quit, Xiao Jinho snatches his sword with his left hand to defend, only for one attacker to mock him, claiming his talent won't let him quickly switch from his right hand, and they charge to finish him off. Jinho fights to stay strong, but things only get worse when he takes another poison needle straight to the heart. Jinho realizes he has only 10 minutes left to find an antidote before the poison kills him. Jinho lowers his sword, knowing the battle is over and ready to face his attackers without fighting back. Just as they are about to reach Jinho, one of them collapses dead, revealing that they aren't alone. While they're still trying to figure out what is going on, Unseal suddenly pops up behind them, looking scary and ready to fight, and his quick surprise move helps him take down the attackers one by one until he's the only one left standing among all the bodies on the ground. Fear takes hold as Xiao Jinho sees Unseal approaching and pleads with him to let him live, assuring him he poses no danger. Unseal simply turns away from him and starts rummaging through one of the bodies on the ground. When Unseal finally spots the antidote he's worried about, he feels a wave of relief, knowing it's his secret weapon against the trainees from the Hellish Blood Castle. Right as he's about to walk away, Xiao Jinho grabs him and says he's been poisoned and has less than 10 minutes to take the antidote. Unseal spins around and, with a chilling tone, tells him his goal is to kill everyone, including Xiao Jinho, and adds that he's only spare because he's already dead. Xiao Jinho finally sees that Unseal was right all along, because in the end, he's just a rival who needs to step aside. Desperate, Jinho tells Unseal he's willing to do whatever it takes if he can just get the antidote. Unseal asks why he should help, and Jinho defends his choice by pointing out that 20 trainees remain, grouped together so that even Unseal's strength can't fight them alone, But in exchange for his help, Jinho promises to reveal the weaknesses of the rest of the group. Jinho promises Unseal he'll never betray him. And after thinking it over, Unseal decides that Jinho is simply not the kind of person who would trick or hurt someone. Jinho promises Unseal he will stand by him until the very end and never turn on him. Finally, Unseal agrees to help and tosses the antidote canister to Jinho so he can save himself. Jinho quickly pours the powder on the hurt spot just as a bell rings to warn him about another locked zone. The instant Unseal hears the news, he yells at Jinho to get moving. And though Jinho is shocked since they're still in the safe zone, Unseal screams for him to use his brain, reminding him that with so much of the battlefield already blocked off, this new restriction must mean only one thing. Basically, the rest of the group is heading straight to meet up at their spot. Before he could even finish speaking, the other groups arrived and surrounded Jinho and Unseal quickly realized they were already late while spotting a strange-looking guy among the newcomers. He wears a red scarf tied around his hair, and he carries a cold look about him. Since the group is made up of different factions, one of them quickly suggests killing Unseal and Jinho before deciding what to do with the rest. It turns out everyone in the group knows about Jinho and Unseal and the special powers they use. Jinho realizes they're in deep trouble and grabs the antidote bottle Unseal gave him earlier. With a clever twist, he hurls the powder at the crowd, shouting that it's deadly poison from the Hellish Blood Castle. A cloud of purple dust erupted, blanketing the whole area as the group members clapped their hands over their mouths in sheer terror. As the group panics over what they thought was poison, Unseal and Jinho scramble to escape, but one member spots the trick and shouts a warning that the powder is safe, saving them all. Jinho is happy to see the powder has created a thick cloud that looks like a smoke screen. While Unseal quickly realizes a big open space won't work, he spots a perfect cave for their fight, and Jinho instantly understands his plan without a word. Unseal grabs Jinho and leads him to a secret cave he once called home, the perfect hidden spot to fight. Jinho is stunned when he sees that Unseal already knows everything there is to know. Unseal and Jinho press forward toward the cave, but their hope dies instantly when a thick cloud of smoke rolls in, revealing that the place has become a forbidden zone. The killer demons have surrounded the whole place, leaving no room for anyone to breathe. Unseal realizes the bosses are watching him, so he deliberately chooses a forbidden zone just to see how they will react. Jinho starts to panic and asks Unseal what to do, and she tells him that the killer demons won't attack them as long as they stay out of the fog. With no other option but to fight, Unseal thinks pushing the demon killers against the wall might just be their best move. Knowing there's no way out, the two get ready for the fight that could end it all. The group chasing them finally arrives, furious that Unseal and his partner are making their lives difficult. Without wasting a second, they sprint at the two of them, ready to end their lives quickly. Up above, the head instructor watches the coming fight, knowing this will be the final showdown for all 10 demon masters. Daggers zoom toward Unseal, whom he sidesteps with ease before hunting down the thrower to slice him down, while Jinho takes down the other attackers to prove he belongs in a different league. Suddenly, a huge weapon zooms toward Jinho, making him jump back just in time. The powerful long-range weapon sends Jinho and Unseal back-to-back once more, forcing their enemies to circle around them. Unseal sees that he's about to die, and with a quiet sigh, he says he has no regrets because he gave everything he had to every moment of his life. The instant Unseal hears the news, he knows his path has split from Jinho's forever, because if he dies now without avenging his grandfather, he'd be haunted by regret, so heavy he loses all fear and goes into battle with his eyes locked tight on the fight ahead. Unseal switches positions from being the hunted to the hunter, and the first two who are running towards.